Today, we step into the cockpit with a man whose silent confidence roared louder than any engine. Captain David McCampbell was a fighter, a leader, and the most decorated naval aviator in American history. This is his story. David McCampbell was born in 1910 in Bessemer, Alabama, amid the soot and clang of steel mills. His family's modest home stood in stark contrast to the dreams he nursed each night, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. He wasn't loud or ostentatious. He was a careful observer who believed that quiet determination could break through any barrier. Even as a boy, discipline came naturally to him. Chores completed methodically, schoolwork perfected down to the smallest detail. But it was his fascination with flight that set his soul alight. He viewed the sky not as a playground for thrill-seekers, but as an arena demanding mastery and respect. In 1933, McCampbell graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis. He moved through the ranks with deliberate purpose. Never the flashiest midshipman, but always the most dependable. 5 years later, at nearly 30, he finally earned his wings. Surrounded by younger, exuberant pilots, he stood calm and poised. Where others saw risk, he saw parameters to control. Where others felt fear, he felt focus. As the rumblings of war grew louder around the globe, his own wartime journey was only beginning. By late 1941, the world teetered on the brink. Europe was engulfed in conflict, and tensions in the Pacific escalated with every passing month. McCampbell's career led him to the USS Wasp in early 1942. The Wasp was a fortress at sea, bristling with fighters and bombers ready to project power across the Solomon Islands. But war is a fickle master. On the night of September 15, a Japanese submarine torpedoed the Wasp. The explosion ripped through the hull, and flame and smoke consumed the deck. Amid cries of alarm, McCampbell raced toward the railing. A deckhand shouted over the roar.
"Captain, the port side's gone. Take cover."
He pressed forward anyway, pulling a wounded airman to safety before leaping into oil-slicked water himself. The cold sea shocked him. Flames danced around floating wreckage. Every breath was a battle. Yet as he fought to stay afloat, his mind was razor sharp. This wasn't defeat. It was the crucible that would forge him into something stronger. When rescuers finally hauled him aboard another ship, his uniform was scorched and his spirit unbroken. He returned to flying with the clarity of a man reborn. By 1944, he commanded Air Group 15 aboard the USS Essex. Pilots, bombardiers, and torpedo aviators from every squadron rallied under his leadership. They saw in him a rare blend of competence and compassion. He never barked orders. Instead, he walked the hangar deck, offered a reassuring nod, and trusted his men to do their jobs. In return, they flew with a fierce loyalty, determined to live up to his silent expectations. Throughout 1944, McCampbell's Air Group carved a path of relentless pressure across the Pacific. They provided cover for amphibious landings in the Marianas, strafed enemy airfields in the Philippines, and harried Japanese convoys day after day. Each mission began before dawn, when the sky still held its secrets in darkness. Under McCampbell's cool command, fighters moved like dancers in formation, precision and timing welded into a single decisive strike. He drilled them on tactics until instinct took over. Theirs became a choreography of destruction against an enemy who never saw them coming. The morning of October 24, 1944, arrived heavy with tension. Vice Admiral Halsey's fleet lay anchored in Leyte Gulf, preparing for a decisive blow against Japanese naval power. Early radar blips signaled a large incoming force, 60 fighters and bombers converging fast. In the ready room, Ensign Roy Rushing glanced at McCampbell.
60 against us, sir. We can't spare more aircraft.
McCampbell met his wingman's steady gaze and simply said,
2 planes are all we need.
With that, they climbed into their F-6F Hellcats and roared off the deck, steel beneath them and destiny ahead. High above the glittering waves, McCampbell found the enemy formation. He dived like a falcon, firing controlled bursts that punched holes in fuel tanks and shredded wings. 1-0 fell into the sea, then another. His third and fourth victims tumbled in puffs of smoke. He moved systematically, each pass a lesson in focus. Rushing stayed tight on his wing, landing his own blows. In an hour and a half of ferocious aerial ballet, McCampbell downed 9 enemy aircraft. 7 nimble Zeros, and 2 heavy Oscars. Rushing added 6 more. Together they shattered the attack, sending the remaining enemy scattering into the clouds. When McCampbell's Hellcat finally settled back on the Essex deck, it coasted on fumes. Only 2 rounds remained in his guns. He climbed out, legs shaking, and lingered to catch his breath. His flight log would later show the brutal tally and note how close he'd come to running dry. Yet even as mechanics led him away for debriefing, his thoughts were on the men he'd protected and the mission still ahead. That single flight cemented his legend, but it was far from the end. By the time his combat tour ended, McCampbell had chalked up 34 aerial victories, more than any Navy pilot in World War II. Air Group 15, under his watch, destroyed over 600 enemy planes and blasted Japanese warships at every opportunity. In early 1945, he was summoned to Washington, D.C. and presented with the Medal of Honor. The citation spoke of conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty, but when asked for his thoughts, he brushed aside the accolades.
I just did my job,
he said. After the war, McCampbell stayed in uniform. He commanded carriers, led training squadrons, and mentored young aviators who hung on his every word. He taught them that discipline was as vital as courage, that respect for the enemy did not preclude ferocity in combat, and that leadership meant sharing both hardship and triumph. In 1964, he retired as a captain, closing a chapter that spanned more than 3 decades of global conflict and peacetime readiness. David McCampbell passed away in 1996 and was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery, the hush of eternity, his final flight. No grand speeches marked his passing, only the salute of veterans who flew in his shadow. His legacy endures not in statues or speeches, but in the quiet confidence of every pilot who looks to the sky and believes that mastery, not madness, prevails. In the Blue Theater of the Pacific, McCampbell carved his name not with words, but with steel, grit, and unwavering resolve. He didn't fight because he loved war. He fought because he loved peace, and knew that sometimes peace must be won at great cost. He never claimed the mantle of hero, but his actions spoke louder than any title, and so his story still soars, reminding us that legends don't fade, they fly on the wings of those brave enough to answer the call.